Hi, today I'm here with Gene Hammett, Managing Director and Co-founder at Core Elevation. He is an executive coach helping founders and CEOs create new company growth. He's also a leadership columnist at Inc. magazine and a keynote speaker and podcast host of Growth Think Tank. How are you doing today, Gene?
I'm fantastic.
Hey, can we kick things off with a little bit of your background?
Sure. I really have been an entrepreneur at heart, I guess, from being a kid. But when I graduated college, I didn't have the idea. So I spent about 10 years in corporate America, getting some of the skills I needed to get my entrepreneurial idea off the ground. After about 10 years, I had a chance to go out on my own right after 9/11. So great timing with everything. But I did have a fat check from my company. It's like $35,000. I asked my wife to marry me with a part of that and started a business with the other part. And we took it to $1 million the first year, took it to about $6 million in year 3. Really fast growth, and all the challenges and ups and downs were something new to me, and I had to overcome a lot of struggles and a lot of things going on in that business that first few years. But getting to a point where I was able to do that, I started to coast a little bit. I started to create that lifestyle business. Didn't really have big ideas to do something big, or any ideas I did have, I wouldn't let myself kind of execute on them. And the short of this story is, and the turning point was, I had a business deal that went sideways. Read between the lines, it went bad. Lost $3 million, and decided to step back and say, what do I really want to do with the rest of my life? And I wanted to become a coach because I'd gotten coaching early, and it had such an incredible impact in my life. And that's how I became a coach. And that was 11 years ago. And so for the last 10 years, I've been working with founder CEOs to help them see what they can't see for themselves, develop frameworks and strategies for growth. And I love every minute of it.
That's really cool. I like how you referenced the 10 years of corporate experience to develop the skills, got into the entrepreneur journey, had ups and downs, and really narrowed down to what are you really passionate about and let that drive your career going forward.
Yeah. I didn't start with my passion. A lot of people talk about that. And I, did I make the right decision in that other business? At the time, e-commerce, everybody was starting to buy things online. I think my first order was like $600. I was so surprised that someone actually put their credit card in and bought something. And I know people were doing small orders, but at the time it was pretty fresh and pretty risky, it seemed like, but it took off, and I built that business up.
That's a great story. Let's talk about some principles to success.
Sure. I know your team kind of asked me what were those 3 principles to success, and I thought about it for a few days, and it really comes back to our ability to do these three things really well. Can we reflect deeply on where we've been, where we're going, and really what's getting in our way? If we can really think about these things. I know a lot of people say you got to take action, but I think we've got to think before we move. And because we want to make sure we're moving in the right direction, we want to make sure we got some things lined up. Now, we certainly don't want to just be a thing. But the first step is you got to reflect deeply. The second one is get intentional. I found through my coach training and through this, a lot of people are ready for action, but they're not actually doing it from a space of intentionality. And that's really hurting their results. Once they get an understanding of what that means, they're able to execute pretty effortlessly. And then the final principle behind this is really about taking ownership, because if nothing happens in life if you're not willing to take full ownership. This means you can't blame others. This means you have to move forward through the challenges. You have to navigate the process changes and everything in order to get the goals. And this is not just for people that are running companies. This is for people that are just trying to move from where they are today to make something happen in their life. And it could be their health, it could be their marriage, it could be their relationship with their kids, it could be anything you're trying to do. Those 3 steps would be really profound if you understand really how to leverage them.
Sounds great to me. Now, this is where we have fun on BossMove. We take it a step further because we want to take these concepts and turn them into some practical steps. So let's walk through that. And taking the first one, reflecting deeply, how would you guide somebody to really turning that concept into some actionable steps? So
it's different with every kind of thing that you're trying to go after. But so I'll take something that a lot of people struggle with, which is, creating a new strategy for their business to move forward. I work with a lot of founders that are already doing, 5 million and 10 million, and they're really good at what they've already done. But they know that there's something else missing that could be done easier. They're looking for a new way forward. Maybe it's a new market. And so I just sit down with them and ask them questions about what have they created so far? What did they really enjoy about that? What was missing? What's the frustrations we have? And I asked them to reflect deeply on all of these things, the results they've created, the emotions and the energy drains that happen as we start to grow businesses. And this is where the magic starts to happen, because when they really reflect deeply, they can be honest with themselves about what was missing or what is missing and how they want to move forward. Because here's the reality. If we don't evolve, we don't get new results. So that's the really first part of that reflecting deeply.
Do you have examples of questions that would be good to ask just to prompt someone to start thinking about these things the right way?
Yeah, I'll come up with a few here. One of them is just, what's really getting in your way right now? And when they say, depending on what they say, they probably won't have the answer. Most really successful people don't know what's getting in their way because a lot of things are going really well. So we typically ask that question just to see what comes up. But then we start asking what could be better.
It reminds me of like Charlie Munger's Inversion, where you sort of have a goal in mind and you think about everything that could go wrong. So that way you're conscious to make sure those things don't happen.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that to a level.
Well, it's similar but different, because it's meant to be, when I'm guiding someone through this reflect deeply phase, I really want them to get grounded in who they are, to be really honest with me, maybe have a conversation that they don't have with their significant other or their people on their team or their boards. Most of my clients are pretty successful leaders of companies, and I get them to have these real conversations with me about what they've created, what's missing, and really what they think is holding them back. Because I could be a consultant instead of a coach and say, what's holding you back? It's this. It's your lack of confidence. But if I say that their lack of confidence holds them back, they don't really get the full effect unless they came up with that answer.
Yeah, and I want to talk about this a little bit, and not to steer somebody towards, a pitch for getting consultant advisor, but there is a difference when you have a first person approach on this versus having a third party help you through this. And I think there is a challenge when you're sort of at a first person view to even get in the mindset, to even give yourself like real clear time to even maybe prompt yourself to do this. And then there's obviously, like you're experienced with, is working somebody, having this dedicated conversation to unravel some of these things and get that thinking in the right direction. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, because I feel like there is some clarity to add there in the difference between tackling it as a solo versus getting the right sounding board to be able to achieve the right thinking there.
You hit on two things there that are really powerful. One is people don't take the time to do it. They really do overschedule themselves, overwhelm themselves, and they're not able to read the energy. It's really hard to reflect deeply when you're exhausted, because you'll end up going to sleep, or you'll end up tuning out into TV or some other distraction that won't allow you to reflect on what's going on. So you want to do this when you're fresh, when you have high energy, when you really are in a good mood, because that creative energy that you bring to this moment is really important. And you want to make time. It doesn't have to be something that you schedule, but I know a lot of people will schedule a weekend for themselves, or they'll schedule a day where they just kind of let their mind wander. And I do this, sometimes once a week, where I'll sit back for an hour and I'll just go, what's really going on here? How can I optimize what I'm doing, and how can I serve better? So you got to take the time. The second part behind this is, can you do it solo versus having someone else that can guide you? You can do it solo. There's a lot of things that we can go back. I mean, there's probably many decisions where we come back and said, you know what? I am very frustrated with the way I feel, the energy level I have. I'm fed up. Why can't I lose weight? Why can't I have more energy? And you start to make a change. That does happen all the time, and it happens in our business. So you can get to this reflection part without the help of someone else. But here's the honest truth. It's so much easier when someone hears the patterns of your bullshit, if I can say that, and they were able to help you see what you can't see for yourself.
Yep.
I've had coaches for years as I developed my company. And, a coach that doesn't have a coach is, sort of a hypocrite, I guess. But I've had coaches in different domains that help me see what I can't see for myself. I know I'm better when I have someone who's not emotionally attached to my life and what's going on, that can ask questions, that can probe, and can look for patterns and data points and can reflect that back to me. Not that they're telling me what to do, but if someone's trained in that, and here's the hard truth. Most people think that they have coach skills, but they don't. They have the ability to tell you what to do next. But it's very different than someone asking you questions and giving you the space and really understanding how to let you find what's next. And it's just much quicker when you have someone that understands how to get that out of you.
Yeah, I like that. Working with somebody to really increase your peripheral view on what's going on. What are other steps around reflecting deeply?
So one of the things you can do is, look at the vision you're trying to create moving forward. A lot of people are clear about the goals that they're trying to create, but they're not really clear about the life they want to live, like the impact they want to make. And some people think this is kind of silly to sit back and think, what will I do in 25 years from now? What will I be able to look back? What's that rocking chair thing? But I really do see value in understanding what the end game is and being able to organize your life around that. I think my wife hates it when I say I'll never be retired, but it really is.
Funny you said that. I just told my accountant that because he asked me what's my retirement plans. I told him the same thing.
I don't think she understands this because I would love to have the mental capabilities to serve my clients when I'm 93 years old, even if I only have one meeting on a Thursday. I could see myself looking forward to that meeting all week. And I'd love to be at that place with my vision and people coming to me with wherever I am in my life and seeing me as that person that can guide them or maybe just help them reflect deeply on what they're creating. But I would love to, build a whole legacy of helping others and helping people move beyond their current challenges. And because I have a clear vision of what the future looks like, and if you have your own clear vision, I can start to look at the milestones along the way, all the books that I want to write in this journey, and that I can roll that back into what do I want to accomplish this year? What do I want to accomplish this quarter? I know it gets very tactical at that point, but if you want to reflect deeply on the real vision that you have, it can be a powerful force for you to pull you toward something new and different.
That's important. I like your point about revisiting that vision because I feel like a lot of times you may do it early and then again, you get in the trap of getting too busy and you don't go back to continue to iterate on it. And that's where maybe some of the stuff starts to fade or not become as clear and compelling. So it makes a lot of sense. Are there any other steps before we jump to the next principle?
You've got to understand what's getting in your way. Is it lack of discipline? Is it lack of understanding of something? Is there a blind spot that you just can't put your finger to? I've worked with a number of clients who said, I know I can grow. I just don't know what else I can do at this point. And when we sit down, I'm not trying to say that I'm, magical or anything like that, but I can sit down with them for an hour and start to see things that they can't see for themselves. And so if you reflect deeply on what's getting in your way, it could be you're indecisive. I hear a lot of very successful leaders go, if I were more decisive, I don't know where I'd be because I let my head get into the slow me down a little bit too much. And maybe you need to reflect on your team. Do you have a leadership model that really is able to create high performance inside your culture and your company? What systems are missing inside the company? Because if you don't have systems, it's hard to create that predictable growth. But that's kind of the zone at which I work, is just reflecting on what's getting in the way of the success you want to create, and then getting real with yourself.
But it's identifying the don't knows and weaknesses that you may have.
Yeah. And it could just be a perspective that you have. I have a lot of, in my early work with entrepreneurs, a lot of the work I had was around their value. They were undercharging and they could not see the value. So what was getting in the way? Their own confidence.
Yeah.
And it happens so often. And it even happens with some of the leaders I work with that are 10 and $20 million in revenue. They've got to increase the level of confidence in themselves, and that changes the game for them.
What do you mean by getting intentional?
So in the second principle, intentional is really a shift from how do you do the work you do to who am I doing the work? So for example, if you had a difficult, email to send to a client, would you be able to do that in a place of frustration very well? Or would you be better off to be in a place of empathy? It's being intentional about the emotional state that you're in, or how the energy you're bringing to doing the thing that you're about to do. So a lot of people are very good at writing a to-do list and getting things done. But there's a reason why we say batch things together. I do a lot of my interviews on my podcast on the same day, if I can. I do a lot of my sales conversations on the same day. I do a lot of my client stuff on the same day because I'm in an energy and a mode. It's different in each one of those things. Can I switch back and forth? Absolutely. But am I best at really staying aligned with this energy and really being intentional about who I am in that moment and performing that task? That's when I'm performing at a much higher level. So getting intentional is really about you understanding how to show up as your best in the thing that you're about to do. And that is a game changer.
It's a good one. This is like an athlete that sort of knows the sleeping pattern you need to develop, the training, the preparation to perform your best. Essentially, similar applies here with your work that you're trying.
Absolutely. It's just taking it all to the next level of being really hyper intentional about everything. So, a lot of people may want to argue with me. I think it's weird when I hear that like Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs wore the same things. I know they're trying to minimize decision fatigue, right? Because they don't have to think about what they wear. But we make so many decisions each day. I think it's odd that that's what they focus on. What if they focused on what they ate? Now I know that Steve Jobs had certain dietary restrictions and whatnot, but most entrepreneurs and most leaders are not worried about the food they put in their body, the things that they drink and how they drink them, the timing of that stuff. And if you want to be playing at your optimal level, you want to make sure that you're eating well, you're really intentional about how you're showing up, because that will give you the edge over everyone else.
Any other steps related to getting intentional?
One of the things I do with my clients is I just ask this simple question. You asked questions earlier, is who do you need to be to create the success you want? Everyone knows what I need to do. I need to make more sales calls. I need to increase sales, get my team aligned around some new goal. And that's important. But who do you need to be? If you can answer the question really clearly, who do you need to be? I'll give you an example. I just had a client I do a couple of 2-day deep dive things with clients. So they come in, the first day is really about the internal. Who do you need to be? And a $50 million company is looking for that next edge. And we look at everything, we step back and I go, who do you need to be? And he goes, it's obvious. I need to be focused and I need to be a better communicator. And we look at that and really reflect, go back to reflecting deeply. What would that do for your business if you shifted those two things? I think I would show up completely different for my team. I'd be a better leader. We would be focused on the right projects. So who do you need to be is what you answer first, not what do you need to do?
Yeah, this is cool. This is like taking the big goal, but then you're bringing it down to your personal goals that you need to do to be able to achieve those goals.
Yeah. And really just getting is you're giving yourself the advantage, because all of us know what we need to do next, right? No matter what we're going to do, if you're going to lose weight, you probably know what you need to do. If you're going to, change the culture inside of your company, you probably can create a plan of what you need to do. But most people don't think about, who do we need to be? I'll give you an example. I'm a professional speaker, and one of the concepts when you first learn to speak on stage is to create a message that the audience can resonate and connect with, right? Create a message so that they can understand your ideas. That's only level one. Level two is really creating a message where the audience feels understood. You see the difference between they understand my message or they feel understood?
Right.
It takes it's a different intentionality to bring that. And then, you can go to level 3 around this, is really looking and mapping out the emotional ups and downs that you take an audience through. Because if you're always up, there's really nowhere to go. But if you can take them down into some of the struggles and frustrations inside this message, and then you can take them back up, and you can have the right kind of emotional contrast inside your messages. And I know this is deep if you're not a professional speaker, but you want to make sure that you're so intentional about how you are delivering a message so that the audience not just understands what you say, but they feel understood, and that you're taking them on an emotional journey so that they can receive the action, they can really feel it. And if you don't do that, they don't actually retain that message very well.
We just got really deep right there. How do we bring this all together to take ownership, and what are the steps around that?
So ownership really comes from my work with fast growth companies. I'm one of the few individuals. I probably interviewed more founder CEOs from the Inc. 5000 than any one single person. I worked with Inc. magazine, writing articles for a long time. And so some of the stuff was because of the magazine, but a lot of it's from my podcast. And so we've had over 500 interviews with these founder CEOs. And I used to ask this question: how do you get your employees to take responsibility for the growth goals of the business? I thought it was a pretty good question. But so many of these leaders said, it's really not about them taking responsibility, it's about ownership. And at the time, I had all of these things on a piece of paper, and I would highlight certain words to see the patterns, because that's what we do when we're really researching something. And hundreds of people have said this word about ownership. And so it's all highlighted in the same color. And I'm like, God, that's the most common word in all of these interviews. So I started asking even deeper questions around ownership. How do you get people to take ownership? Well, you don't get them to take ownership unless they feel like owners. And so the core message of fast growth companies, if you want to create a business that is going to grow faster than your peers, then you want to create a team of people that feel like owners, even if they don't have a financial stake. Now that's the core of this. But then I started looking at human nature around ownership. Nothing gets done until you stop blaming others and take ownership for how you move forward. I've recently lost, 10, 12 pounds. It wasn't because I've got, a fancy diet or fancy this. I got really serious with myself. I went through these entire steps, and I was taking ownership every step of the way. No one was there to say, maybe you shouldn't have that cupcake. I made a decision. I didn't have the cupcake. I changed and shifted a whole bunch about me. And that's what you have to do in any kind of, this is all about the principles of success. You've got to be willing to take ownership of it. Stop blaming anyone else. Move forward. That means you're going to own the process. You're going to own any challenges that come in the way. You're going to own everything it takes to get to that goal. And unless you're willing to take ownership, you're going to really struggle to make that happen for you.
No excuses, no blaming others.
No blaming others.
This is a tough one. This is what it boils down to at the end of the day, and probably where a lot of people struggle with it.
Yeah. And it's easy to blame others. That's the easiest thing in the world to do, is to blame others. I mean, I could tell you stories about what's going on in my marriage, relationship with my son, my mother, within my team, my clients. But if I blamed anyone else, I'm giving them full control to fix it. And I'm blameless, right? I can step back and go, well, if they get their act together, everything would be right. But the reality is, we have to take ownership every time.
How do you get the shift if somebody's in that pattern of being the victim, blaming others, to really take ownership?
So we go back to reflect deeply. You have to ask questions about victimhood. And you can literally just be blank with this, or blunt, if you will, is the right word. You can say, it sounds like you feel like a victim here.
Hey,
They're going to say, well, I am a victim because of this or because of that. I mean, maybe you've heard people say this, but I've had the luck to have really great parents. I had a great childhood. It wasn't, but I know a lot of people that want to blame their parents for where they are today. But there's been a lot of people out there that have gone through worse and come out better because they're not willing to give that energy, that blame, and that victimhood to someone else. They've taken ownership of who they are, and they rose above what's in front of them.
it sounds like this comes back to those preceding principles where you really understand what's preventing you. You look at the goals and identify it within your personal goals and skills you need to develop. And this essentially creates those compelling reasons why you would take ownership and really drive it.
That's a pretty good summary there.
I don't know. That's just me listening to you put it in, try to condense it back together.
Level, right? But when you understand that if you take time to reflect deeply on who you are and where you're going and what's getting in your way, it should help you get intentional. Like they kind of connect together. And when you get intentional about what you're doing and then you start to move with intention, it really is a powerful force, because if you realize too many people, we all know when we get a bad email in, not to fire off a response, right? We all know that that's a bad thing to do. We need to sit back and create some space. Can we agree to that?
Yep.
And the reason why you're creating space is because you don't want to fire off when you're frustrated or angry. You want to be able to change that mindset and emotion in. The reason why you take the space is to make that shift. Now, is it because you need to get intentional about that shift? I think it is, but most people don't put that piece in there. They just say, don't send the email right away. Give it some time. But the real reason is get intentional. And the take ownership, I mean, you nailed it. If you think you're the victim, you'll never move forward the way you want to and reach the levels that you could.
Gene, what's the best mistake you've ever made?
The best mistake. That's easy. I told you a little bit about the failed business I had after 9 years of running a business. We were making, about $6 million in revenue a year, building a team up, really had a powerhouse business, and had a business partner that was on this deal with me for about $3 million. I put everything I had into it, all my energy, and I trusted one person way too much. And the deal fell apart. And my life fell apart. I lost my business, lost my savings, lost my house, really lost my sense of confidence. But my wife said something really wise. I couldn't see it at the time. This is one reason why a third-party perspective is so important that you mentioned earlier. She said, you'll look back on this and you'll be thankful that this happened to you. Now, at the time, I couldn't do that. I had tears in my eyes when she said this, and I was holding her tight. And I was afraid for my life and for what was going to happen. But eventually things settled down and I was able to put my life back together. And it wasn't too long. It took me a couple of years maybe to look back at that big mistake I made in trusting someone, and decided that it put me on a path to be where I am today, to serve the people I serve, to do what I do. And it's not about the money I make. I absolutely love coaching these founders, executives on strategy and mindset to be a self-managing company and create the kind of growth that they really are capable of doing.
When you hit bottom, you always come back bigger and better.
I felt like I hit bottom. There was many things there that were just breaking me up to pieces. And my wife stood by me. I have a lot of people go, you guys still married? I'm like, absolutely. She's a solid rock in my life. And it really is an honor to have gone through this with her, although I wish I wouldn't have put her through the pain. But at some level, she probably knows that we had to go through that to get to where we are today.
Gene, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate the conversations and the principles you shared with us.
Absolutely. And if anybody wants to check out more the depth behind what I am, my story, of course, I got a book out called The Trap of Success. My podcast is Grow Think Tank. And my coaching business is at genehammett.com. So Core Elevation is just kind of the legal name of the company. But if there's any way I can help and serve you guys, please let me know.
Thanks, Gene. Appreciate it.